Hey designers, I'm Laura of Laura Irwin Design and Games, and today we are talking to Chris Williams about his new game on Crowdsale now called Trace the Stars. Hi Chris, so you are crowdsaling Trace the Stars. Can you tell me a little bit about what the game's about?
So Chase the Stars, it's this roll and write game about plotting constellations, and I actually have the box of it here. It's pretty happy with it. So it's about plotting constellations, and in it, players roll these star-themed dice that are on the GameCrafter. It's kind of hard to see there maybe, but these little star-themed dice, and they use them to plot constellations like coordinates, and they plot them on their star map. And so like here's the star map, so you can kind of see one there, and then they score the points for plotting whatever's on the card.
That's so cool. Yeah, so with Trace the Stars, how many players does it play? And like, would you consider it like a light game? And like, how long do you think it takes to play?
Yeah, so it does 2 to 6 players. It's definitely a light game. I really wanted it to have this sort of relaxing feel throughout the game. And so the time can kind of vary. I have 30 to 45 minutes on the box, but really it kind of depends on your play group.
So, what made you want to design a game, and how did you get into tabletop gaming?
Yeah, so I grew up having weekly family game nights and mostly playing things like Sequence or Stratego. And then I also played a lot of trading card games throughout middle school and into high school. But then as an adult, a couple of my friends introduced me to the Resistance Avalon. And that was really my first intro into modern board gaming. And that just, I was just hooked from there. And so I've collected a bunch of board games from there from then. And then right around that same time is when I started getting into that. I was working for a educational video game design kind of startup company for a little while, which was sort of inspired to make a board game version of one of the games that we were working on. And so I kind of tried my hand with that. But then since it was a startup, they ended up closing, but I still wanted to work on board games. So in 2017, I decided to start All Right Games, which is my little hobby business for game design now.
Awesome. That's
And
so
then,
interesting that you did an
yeah, and then,
educational game, board game version of something that you were working on. I am
yeah,
in an art education master's and I've been like trying to come up with an educational game that isn't memorization, and it's just so difficult.
it's really tough. It's really tough. And that was kind of something I even did with Trace the Stars. Actually, I don't know if you can see it on the camera here, but on the bottom of each of the cards is a little fact about all the cards. And with all the cards, there's 88 of them in there, and there's 88 officially recognized constellations. So I actually had them all based off of that. And that wasn't something I sought, to do from the beginning to have, to make it kind of educational, but it was kind of a fun side effect of it.
It adds like such an element of, it's kind of like how Wingspan, everyone really loved the facts, kind of like hit this like little niche that people really liked that. And
So yeah, Wingspan's super fun. I love that one, and that's definitely I've taken some inspiration from that for having the little facts on the bottom.
so Trace the Stars was a finalist in the GameCrafters Roll and Write contest. Roll and Writes are incredibly popular right now. How did you go about designing a roll and write game?
So I really only played a handful of roll and writes. So I wasn't really sure what to do at first, and kind of the first thing that came to mind was to have this grid based. I'll show here this grid based thing with using the dice like coordinates, and then sort of just kind of brainstorming what could work with that, and constellations just seemed like a natural fit. And then at the same time, usually whenever I'm designing anything, I really like to explore the GameCrafter site and go through all their components that you can have, and that's where I found those little star dice, and they were just super cool looking, and I really wanted to go with that. So I really tried to shape the game around that with both the design and the art style and gameplay and everything.
Oh, that's awesome. I thought those were custom dice. That's so cool that you were able to use what they had and like
Hmm.
make it work for your game.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I love them.
Yeah, that's so cool. I was like, how like the game capture is kind of expensive, but like I was like, how did you get custom dice? That's crazy.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I can't believe it was part of there. That's such like a
yeah,
cool thing.
yeah. It was a good find.
So every week I meet up with my game design group and like we playtest new games, and playtesting is so important to game design. How did you playtest Trace the Stars? Was it online? Did you send it to friends, or did you just play it with your family at game night?
Yeah, I'm definitely jealous that you get to have one every week. I don't think I can get my friends together that often to test my games. But yeah, playtesting was amazing for Trace of Stars. To begin with, I kind of just did the normal playtesting with my wife and friends and stuff. Um, and then what really, really moved it forward was I brought it to Protospiel, Minnesota, which was my first time ever going to Protospiel. And it was amazing. I got a ton of feedback. I met some really, really great people, and just it really made the game what it is. and at first I was really skeptical of Protospiel. I've heard so many people saying that it's amazing and everything like that to go there, and that it's definitely worth the money and stuff. But never going to one, I wasn't really sure what to expect, and it was beyond expectations. It was amazing. My game would not be where it's at without going to Protospiel.
That's so awesome. I've never gotten to go to a Protospiel. I'm based in New York. We have Metatopia. Super like cool that you guys got to do that. I've always wanted to go. I always see Ben Moy there, and I'm like, Ben, you're
That's
there.
where I met Ben. Yep. I've gotten to know Ben pretty well now, just because I met him there, and then he's a super great guy. So he's been a big help in giving me some feedback and everything too, and just being super supportive because it's Ben.
And it's so helpful to get like the support of other designers and like their feedback and like to get a new group playing it.
Oh yeah. On top of Protospiel, the other like super important thing that's really helped me has just been the Game Crafters community as a whole, especially the Facebook group that they have. They've been super supportive and helpful and just generally nice people, and really, really awesome. There were quite a few things that I wasn't sure what to do with Trace the Stars, and they did such an awesome job of helping me get through that and make it a fun game now.
Yeah. So what were some of the challenges in designing Trace the Stars, and how did you solve those challenges?
Yeah, the first big one we did kind of fix at Protospiel while we were there too. Originally, I had it so that you had all these cards kind of in the middle of the table, and all players were trying to go towards those cards. But it really made it frustrating if you were trying to get a card and then all of a sudden someone got it before you, and now you've kind of been wasting your time and plotting all these stars all over your star map, and now you can't really do much with them. And I didn't want that. I didn't want this to have any sort of frustration really in the game. The main feeling that I wanted for this game was I wanted it to feel like a group of friends sitting out like in the grass watching the night sky and pointing up the constellations, that kind of thing. So I wanted it to have this sort of relaxed and sort of peaceful feeling. So while we were at Protospiel, we played it with a few people, and actually Ben was in there too. And we got rid of the reserving cards and claiming cards from the middle thing, and then instead went to where there's still some middle cards, but they're sort of bonus cards that everyone can get, and they stay there once someone gets them, so other people can still claim them. And then players also get to have their own set of cards in front of them that no one else can get, that still kind of rotate in and out. So it was a nice mix of the two. But honestly, really the only other like huge challenge that I felt like I faced with this game was figuring out the name. I originally wanted to call it something completely different that I really liked, but then while I was at Protospiel, I found out that someone else from the GameCrafter was working on a very similar game with the same name, and I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. Again, I love the GameCrafter community and stuff, so they've been so super helpful. So I didn't want to get into any sort of arguments or anything over just a simple name. So with the help of people in that group and then sort of asking friends and stuff, I came up with the name Trace the Stars, and I think it worked out better than the original name. So I was really happy that.
Yeah, I love that name so much because it works perfectly with a roll and write style game. It just like it fits in so well.
Thank you.
What made you choose to do constellations as your theme?
Yeah, part of it was just the star dice. When I found out that kind of solidified that I wanted to go with the constellations. But really, it was just going with the roll and write game in general, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with that sort of grid coordinate thing. Constellations was really my first idea, and it worked out really well. And so I based all the art style sort of around the dice. If you can see them, they're sort of like that really sort of translucent blue looking almost. So that's kind of why I based the colors on the cards sort of around that. And I really wanted to have this sort of just kind of peaceful and really cool looking feel to the game. And then I originally didn't think I was going to like my design as much as I thought I did, or as much as I ended up liking it. So I didn't really give it myself a big budget for it. I didn't want to go out and buy a bunch of art if it was going to be something that I was going to just end up shelving later, because I do that with a lot of my designs. So I ended up deciding to use Creative Commons art, and I found some images on there of just the night sky that worked really well. It looked beautiful, and it just really fit with that style.
That's so great. Like it works, and it looks like you hired an artist to do it. And it just like because of your color palette that you chose, it all fits in so nicely. It worked really well, and that's such a good point for new designers, because like hiring an artist is so expensive, and it can kind of like slow down your design process. And especially with like a Game Crafter contest, you want to like be able to get it out as soon as possible.
Yeah. A lot of times if I'm just trying to do something quick, I'll try to find some art that I, you know, want to shoot for at some, someday, like, in a perfect world, and I want to put all this money towards it. I would love to get an artist because they can do some amazing work with board games. I can use Photoshop to a point, but I'm still pretty limited with my Photoshop skills.
Yeah, I could totally see like a limited edition version, like in a hollow print or something like that, or like
Oh, that'd be so cool.
it'd be really cool. So, why did you choose to do a crowd sale for your game? And do you have any ideas for expansions in the future?
Yeah, so the crowd sale idea was basically just because I decided I wanted to release my games on the GameCrafter, pretty much only on the GameCrafter. And that was kind of, I really decided on what my company goals were going to be. So I've kind of decided that I want to make my games to put on the GameCrafter, probably do crowd sales with them, and then try to maybe find a publisher at some point here and there. But my main focus is really just making the games. That's the part of the hobby that I enjoy. I don't really enjoy doing the marketing part and everything. And I know it takes a lot of time and effort to do something like Kickstarter. So I knew I didn't want to go into that. But the GameCrafter, their crowd sale things that they do for it, it's so easy. They handle all the billing and all the shipping, all the printing, everything. I don't have to really do anything once it's out there outside of bringing the crowd itself. With which how supportive the GameCrafter community is, and because I've been posting my updates and everything from Trace the Stars, it's been a lot easier to sort of bring this crowd. Well, hopefully, I guess it starts this week. We'll see how my efforts pay off, but it's been a little easier because this community has been helping make the game with me, and so I'm hoping it kind of feels like their own kind of game too.
Yeah, I found that like the Game Captor community, like kind of they all know each other and they all support
Mm-hmm.
each other, and like it just becomes, and like I really like your point about using a crowd sale because you're not looking to become like a like a big publisher. So
Mm-hmm.
kickstarting doesn't really make sense for you because you love designing, and like I
Yeah.
love doing game art, and so I kind of focus on the game art aspect of it mostly, and like my design kind of comes secondary. So it's really like cool to see like what people focus on in like games.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Um, and then as for expansions, I'm currently working on one where I want to add in asterisms to the game, which when I was researching constellations and everything, I learned that asterisms are basically unofficial constellations, like the Big Dipper and Little Dipper, those kind of things. And so I still need to test it a bunch, but the idea is that you'll have basically just smaller constellations that can give you bonus points for your full constellations. Normally in the game, the constellations can't touch each other, but with the asterisms, you only get points if they sort of touch all the other constellations, and you can kind of join constellations together with that. So pretty excited for it. And then I'm also hoping to add a solo mode to it. That was something that I had a few people request, so I'm gonna give that a shot.
Oh, that's awesome. I love like a solo mode in a game, especially with the roll and write. Like you like throw it in your bag and like just
Mm-hmm.
play it whenever you want. So, do you have any plans for future games besides the expansion? And are you playtesting anything currently?
Yeah, I usually have 3 to 5 games kind of that I'm messing around with at a time that I'm really serious about. The main two that I'm really working on right now are called Lobby Kala and 1-2 Punch. Both are 2-player strategy games that I want players to have that same feeling that they get when they're playing something like chess or Onitama, where they get that like cleverness and satisfaction of putting in a plan and watching it unfold in front of them. So with Lobby Mancala, it's a Mancala-inspired game of dirty politics where players use these really cool-looking, like anthropomorphic animals to use their talents to alter the state of the game. So they can change the cards around, they can move the cubes around the board. And then 1-2 Punch is a boxing card game where players they secretly pick action cards and then they simultaneously resolve them based on the timing. And so the mechanics of 1-2 Punch are super tight. But the strategies and everything come in really understanding how things work and everything in the game, which is something I wanted to go with. I wanted to go with something that was really simple, but the strategy came from the actual gameplay.
Those games sound awesome. I love the boxing one because in the simultaneous gameplay and being able to get the feeling of doing the sport almost, but while you're
Mm-hmm.
also like breaking it down into just basic strategy. So if you could design your dream game, What type of game would it be?
Yeah, just recently I've been kind of thinking about this, and there's no way I'd be able to do it because the licensing would be a nightmare. But I think it would be super awesome to have a board game version of something like Super Smash Bros. Which, for people who aren't aware, Super Smash Bros. Is a video game where you have a bunch of different characters from, different video game series like Mario and Sonic fighting each other. And I think it would just be super cool to have a board game where you have uh, like the medic from Pandemic fighting the robber from Catan, fighting Craig Hart from Gloomhaven, all these different characters just fighting each other from different board games in a board game setting. I think would be really, really cool.
Oh my god, I
But I
love
don't have the
that. It's like
resources to do it.
Ready Player One, but like with
Yeah,
games. Trace the Stars is active on the GameCrafter. It's going to be active now, and it will be until September 7th.
yep.
It looks amazing, and I'm definitely going to be picking up a copy. Where can people find you and your games, and any upcoming projects you're working on?
So finally I'm launching Trace of Stars here on September 1st, launching it on September 1st, and then starting off with this crowd sale that'll run to the 7th. And then it'll continue to be available on the GameCrafter after that. It just won't have the discounted price like it will during the crowd sale. And hopefully enough people will want to buy it to make that discount even deeper. It normally is going to cost $30, but it'll be $5 off right away with that crowd sale. And then it'll go down another 50 cents with every 10 copies sold. But everyone that buys the game will be paying that same low price regardless of when they made that purchase during the crowd sale. And as for where to find me, I post my stuff on my Facebook page pretty often, All Right Games, as well as on the GameCrafter Facebook group. I'm usually pretty active on there. I do have an All Right Games Twitter and an Instagram. I just don't use them as much as I really should be. But all that information you can find on my website, which is allrightgames.com, or if you just search Facebook, or if you're on the Facebook GameCrafter group, I'm sure you'll see me posting stuff on there. And I love working with new artists and graphic designers and everything too. So if anyone's interested in that kind of stuff, definitely let me know. Or if you're a publisher that sees some potential in my game and want to take it to the next level, let me know that too.
Awesome. It was great having you on today,
Okay.
and really great talking to you and getting your perspective on game design. I'm Laura from Laura Irwin Design and Games. You can find me on my Facebook, Instagram, and website, same ledesignandgames.com. And I'll see you next time, designers. Bye.